Hello and welcome to the program, live from Los Angeles. And this is this evening. Okay, it's a special day for Spanish people. They celebrate Cinco de Mayo. I don't know. I said wrong. I don't know. So, anyhow, let's go. We start talking with different specialists about. Perfectionism. And this time we are going and talk to Dr. Kade. Hello and welcome to program.
Good afternoon, Mr. Amir. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on Cinco de Mayo. I'm not really sure if people are really going out there celebrating. Hopefully, not in masses.
But I don't know, should I say unfortunately or yeah, they celebrate. They celebrate and
It,
they have a party and uh, I was connected with the different friends and they did a video call and said, okay, you have a friend in your house. They say, yeah, we have a fun, and they don't wearing
oh
mask,
God.
nothing, and so this is the last
People do
report.
that.
This is the last report.
Actually, you said that, but during the Persian New Year, I remember a couple of my friends, they had a small gathering, like 10 or 15, and then I got a call 3 weeks after that, so sort of in the beginning of April, that four
Okay,
of them actually ended up getting the COVID-19.
really?
So
Okay.
yeah, I thank God they're all okay, but it's really not very smart. Got
Yeah,
to be very careful.
exactly. It's not responsible. They are not responsible
Exactly.
about people. If you want to do something with yourself, is fine. But there is a very, very, disappointed. I'm disappointed when I see people. I saw Sunday I was biking and I saw 60%, 70% of people they didn't, they're wearing mask.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and let's talk about which topic I want to talk to you. Let's
You
go
just said
with
perfectionism before you came in.
perfectionism. Yeah. Let's go with perfectionism. That's a good one, because some people they believe good or bad, right or wrong, black or white, and everything should be perfect, and there is no room for mistake, or there is no room for improvement. When you ask any question and you ask for a scale for 1 to 10, all the time they said 10, 10, 10. I said, okay, give me a room for you know improve, or
Maybe some eight.
yeah, so
Right.
exactly. So uh
If let me start first by
please,
giving you a brief definition of what perfectionism really means.
please.
Perfectionism in psychology, at least, or in social psychology, the way we look at it is technically a person who does not accept any standard below perfect. Just like you mentioned right now, they don't believe in flexibility. There is no room. It's either black or white. Who is a perfectionist person? And I'm just going to tell you a brief characteristic of some of the characteristic of a perfectionist so that people can identify. And oftentimes this perfectionism actually starts before age 8. You'd be
Hmm.
surprised that some of this
Wow.
perfectionism starts before age 8. It's obviously mainly due to the response you have to your parents. Because if you're not perfect, you may be punished. There may be a lot of things. There may be you're not competing with your brother. Did you finish your plate? Look, your brother just finished his plate. Your brother just did his bed. How come you didn't do your bed? So then you feel like you're in a competition. You constantly have to compete, or you
Hmm.
have to show that in some area you're better than someone else. So that basically starts building inside of you. A perfectionist person is usually a person who believes in flawless thinking.
Hmm.
Just like you said, it's a black and white view. They usually have a very critical attitude, like they critique everything, especially themselves,
Hmm.
especially themselves. And that's the most harmful way of being a perfectionist. They usually have an obsessive compulsive personality disorder, meaning they're
Yeah.
constantly obsessed and they're
Hmm.
constantly under a lot of stress.
Hmm.
Usually they have to be in control. They cannot give a task to someone else. Like if they have to manage a task and they have to divide this task and start giving it to a certain type of people, they may think, oh, such and such person may not be able to complete that task perfectly, so I should take over myself and do it myself. So they're always under stress. They're very rigid. They have a very rigid thinking. Like you said, there is no flexibility. It's a straightforward thinking. There is no room. It's only this or nothing else. And they usually believe in rules and regulations. Like you will find a lot of them becoming judges, attorneys. You will find a lot of these people becoming police officers. They believe in rules and the law. I'm not saying the rules and law are bad. I'm just saying they don't see any flexibility in between. It's either black or white. They don't. They usually lack generosity, and I hope people don't think that I'm saying that they're not generous, but they do have less compassionate. They're less compassionate for other people.
Right.
Unless you believe in their view and the way they think and the way they operate, they have they don't have much compassion for you. Like you said, give me some room, for a little bit of room for flexibility. No, there is no room. It's rigid. This is the way it is. So there is no compassion. Or maybe this person has a different set of standard. Maybe this person is not going to live up to my standard. That is going to be such a perfect person. He may need some room to have some flaw and have some mistakes. So that really does not exist. So this basically a synopsis of characteristic of a perfectionist person.
So
And if I
go ahead,
go ahead,
please.
please.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and of course, this, like I mentioned before, this starts from childhood. But then, if we look at the bigger picture, like for example, in late 70s, like 1975, 1970, 1974, in the United States, for example, if you had a high school degree, a high school diploma, you pretty much were okay. 50% of the people, actually, based on a lot of statistics that I've looked at many times, 50% of the people only had a high school diploma, and they could actually
Right.
go get a job and
Right.
take care of their family.
Right.
You will find that to be now about 80% or even higher. A high school diploma really is pointless and meaningless. You really cannot do anything with it. So the level of perfectionism, also the level of standard of living, the level of performance has changed because of the expectation of the world, because of the population of the world, and also because of a lot of other reasons like social media. For example, if you really look at it, social media gives a presentation. You just showed a video, and I looked at these people. They look so beautiful, so good looking. They dance beautiful. They sing really nice. So if you really want to live up to some standards, when you look at the social media, you're thinking, "Oh my God, my body doesn't look like a Barbie.
But
So I gotta go get some. I gotta go get some injections. I gotta lose
yeah.
20 pounds. I gotta do
Right.
this." You see what I'm saying? So the
Yes.
stress
Yes.
of social media is also a very big added component to all of these other factors. And of course, the society puts a lot of pressure on people. Like, for example, look at the Persian culture. They expect you. I remember I was probably 6 years old, and my father said, "You have to become a doctor because I'm a doctor." So the level of expectation of education for us, my brother became an attorney, I became a psychologist, the other one became a contractor. So a level of expectation was so high that either you live with my standard or go kill yourself, that kind of a
Right.
thing. And then,
Right.
of course, comes the image that the society gives you. So, for example, if you look at Japan, the level of expectation from parents on a child is extremely high. The level of education, and some people unfortunately end up committing suicide
Right.
because of so much expectation and pressure that the society puts on.
Okay, yes. So, you said it started from childhood, before 7, 8, and another things. It's mean they are all the time in competition. They are all the time. They compare them with the other kids. That's why they feel they have to be best and number
Sometimes
one.
sibling rivalry is what they call it in English. Sibling rivalry. So basically, you're thinking, I have to compete with my brother. If he's better in basketball, I got to shoot more hoops. I got to become better because look, my father is looking, or other people are looking at me. So there is a certain level of expectation even from yourself. It's not. It starts with parents and everybody else, but then you put that responsibility on you, And with that responsibility, you start demanding more and more and more from yourself. And you basically come to a point where you see you don't give yourself a little room for mistakes.
Right.
You start criticizing. One thing that people have to realize, and I think you will relate if I tell you this, we are we look at ourselves, we look at other people as someone that is outside of us, right? We look at them and we judge them and we evaluate them. We do the same thing with ourselves. We are a sort of like an out of body experience. We constantly judge ourselves. You look at yourself in the mirror, you either say, oh my God, I look great, or you may start criticizing yourself. Why is my skin looking like this? Why is my hair is like that? How come I look like this? I have to lose 10 pounds. I have to lose 20 pounds. So we are constantly putting pressure and criticism on ourselves. To a certain level, some levels of anxiety, it's appropriate because it basically becomes a drive for you to become somebody, right?
You're
I
right.
remember when I finished my master's program, one of my professors said, so what? What are you going to do with the master's program? Getting to the PhD program. So that level of pressure that was put on me made me go into a PhD program and become better. But if the PhD program was something that I could not achieve and I would constantly put that pressure on myself, it would sort of become like a self-oriented perfectionism, which is basically imposing the perfectionism on yourself. And we do have the different categories. I'm just going to briefly tell you about the three of them. Self-imposed is obviously, like we talked, it's something that you impose on yourself. It's probably in my opinion, the worst kind if you become extremely obsessive with it. People like that usually are depressed. They have a high level of anxiety. They sometimes even end up having eating disorders. They end up having psychological disorders. They're going to start blaming themselves and others for all of their problems and misfortunes, right? So this is it is high level of anxiety and depression basically can kick in. And then what we call also when people who are focused on their body and the way they look, because it's either this perfection is either on your performance or the way you look most of the time. Can I perform at a certain level or can I look as perfect as someone else? This
Right.
level of perfectionism that is on your body, physical body, it's called dysmorphia. So you're having a vision of your body that does not look good. You're constantly under stress. The second part is the other oriented imperfectionism, which is basically what you put on your kids. You have to be perfect. Why did you get 90? You should get a 100. Are there other people in your school that are getting 100? How come you got 90? 80 is not acceptable. You have to 85 or whatever it is, the type of pressure that we put on others. Or we
Yes.
tell a person, how come you're working like this? Look at your cousin. He's making $2 million a month. You're making $200,000. What is wrong with you? I mean, get a life and fix yourself. So we put that
Pressure.
excessive
Yeah.
stress on others, including our kids. And then the third kids, excuse me. And then the
Yeah.
third one, which is I briefly described, is the pressure that is coming from the society. Society constantly puts us under pressure, right? Because other people are looking at you. Oh, you're not driving a Mercedes Benz? What kind of a work do you do? You drive a Toyota. You see what I mean? So it's like the
Right.
criticism or the pressure that they put on you, it turns around, and because you may have some doubts about yourself, you may have some issues with also some of this social pressure. You internalize those pressures and it becomes part of you as a stress factor,
But
right?
I hope
So
this
then you
social pressure gonna be fixed, and already fixed with Mr. or Mrs. Coronavirus, because all people they figure out, oh, there is a lot of things is more important than, you
uh-huh.
know, beauty, outside beauty. They are inside, they are home, they are thinking about themselves, they are going inside, they are thinking more. No, it's not that much important to have a big money or, popular car, a good car, like a, or some
This kind
name
of
or
this
yeah,
kind of stress is usually put on you in societies where there are
exactly,
a lot of achievements. If
right.
you go in some parts of Africa, or maybe if you go in some part of Pakistan or Afghanistan or some other third world country, there may not be so much pressure on you because pretty much 90% of the population is at the same level.
Mm-hmm.
80% of the population at the same level. So you're
Right.
only thinking about survival. I got to make money, feed my kids, have a roof over their head, and then drop dead. That's pretty
Right.
much. But then in societies like here, when somebody's driving a $500,000 car, you're thinking, I should at least have drive a $70,000 car. So that
Hmm.
social pressure kind of becomes internalized unless you look at it the way you just said. You look at
Mm-hmm.
life as life is more than what they put on me. Life is whatever that I can create for myself to make myself happy and create happiness in other people. And that's a totally different view.
Exactly. You already answered most of my questions, and well done.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Kat, I have a question about this type of people. Usually, they are very good for their manager. Their manager and client, they are so happy. But coworker, they are all the time in the pressure, and they gonna be hurt by this
Yes.
person. So, uh, let's talk with uh, this type of people. If one of our audience, if you feel one of this symptom is close to you, so how they can fix themselves, how they can, I don't want to say fix because we don't have this word in psychology, how they can improve themselves.
That's a very good question because obviously at some point, either yourself or with the help of a professional, you try to identify some of these issues because they're really causing problem in your life, right? So if it doesn't affect you or it doesn't affect anyone else in your life, you certainly may not even become aware of it. It's not an issue. It's a non-issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like somebody shooting, going to a basketball court and shooting maybe 30%. Other people, other basketball players over there are doing over 50%. So you already know you have to improve yourself to a certain degree, right? In
Right.
this case, it's the other way around. You're trying to shoot at 100% and you're at 80%, and then you put the same type of pressure on other people to improve themselves and bring themselves up to 80% performance level
Right.
while their performance could even be 70% and it may be perfect and good enough, right? For a lot of other people, but it's not good enough for you. So the way I would look at or I would advise them is the first point in everything in psychology is to realize that there is an issue and this issue is affecting my life. It's affecting my health. Like I said earlier, I became depressed or I have anxiety. I cannot sleep. I have obsessive compulsive. A lot of people have serious lack of sleep. They only sleep 3 to 4 hours, not more than that. So they're under constant attack by themselves and the way they think and view life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those people are perfect at so many levels. I know I have a couple of clients that are actually in big time professional careers, right? And they're doing
Mm-hmm.
really good, but they're under serious stress. One of the things that I recommend to them is make sure that first step is you tell yourself, I'm not here to compare myself to someone else. I'm here. Amir is going to compare himself to Amir. Payam is going to compare himself to Payam, not to anybody else.
Right.
John is going to compare himself to John. I don't have to compare myself to Magic Johnson if I have to go play basketball with my friends, right?
No, please
Everybody is
don't do
at
that.
their own place. Yeah. Yeah, because I would feel bad. But everybody has to understand one thing. I am an individual, just like my fingerprint has
Right.
a different type of, it has its own characteristics and it's different than everybody else. Everything about me is also different than somebody else. I don't have to compare myself to someone else. I don't
Yeah.
bring somebody else's fingerprint and say, does it match his? It doesn't? Oh, something is wrong. I don't do that. So that's one. It's the second thing, which is what I call a repeated obsessive habits or thinking. You need to start recognizing and pointing out certain sometimes you will not be realize it. You have to go to a therapist to realize which habits are the habits that you're constantly and repeatedly repeating. You need to start de-escalating some of these habits. For example, I have to get up at 5 a.m. to look at all my emails. You will stop doing that and you're going to start looking at them at 6:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
You will start, you see what I mean? You're going to give
Yeah.
yourself the time to step back, look at the bigger picture. What is more important, my health or the email that I have to look at and be perfect. That's
Yeah.
number two. And then, of course, comes with self talk, which I hope self talk, it doesn't come like you're going to be crazy and start talking to yourself. Self talk means is you recognize some of the issues you have and you
Mm-hmm.
start putting positive thoughts into your head that life is about this, this, and this. Three or four things that are important to many people that are also very successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they still don't have the obsessive thoughts that you have.
Mm-hmm.
They know, they have recognized what is more important. The other thing which earlier I pointed out was these people, unfortunately, are biggest critics of themselves, meaning they don't even have compassion for themselves. They don't have love for themselves. They may
Mm-hmm.
show that they do because they're perfect at everything, right? They own 10 buildings, they have 50 cars, their company is doing great, they have 500 employees, but you will see that when you come back to these people, they have no compassion for themselves. Look at Robin Williams, for example, right?
Right.
Robin
Right.
Williams was a very, very successful person. He was known all over the world. He was very rich, but that mentality of being perfect at everything and being so depressed and so obsessed finally ended up taking his own life. So you have to realize that you have to be compassionate to yourself. That I think is that is the most important factor in my opinion. If you lose compassion for yourself and others, you start putting pressure on you. And then in a company, like you just mentioned, you're going to put serious pressure on other people. You're going to bring them to a breaking point. You either fire them or they quit
Mm-hmm.
and they leave. So
Mm-hmm.
there has to be a balance. There has to be some form of flexibility. Nobody can be rigid. It's like a car. If you sit in a car and the car is not rigid and it's not going, it doesn't have shocks, you start feeling serious pain in your back, in your neck, and everywhere else. This is exact same thing, and we have to have that flexibility.
Yes, exactly. You're
One way
amazing.
to
You,
stop it, I
yeah.
guess.
No, no, no. You're amazing. Very good. I love to, continue this if you have a time. It's amazing. One of the doctor, he mentioned it's easy. Just you need to make a decision. I want to stop it, and I should stop this. For example, if I'm washing my dishes on time, organized, don't wash your dishes and leave it for tomorrow. Or
Right.
if I have to check my email 5:30 in the morning, okay, sleep more, enjoy it, wake up, do meditation, relax, work out, and then check your email 7:30. Nothing gonna happen. So it's not the end of the world. And just give a little space to gray area between black and white, and then
Hmm.
step by step
Absolutely.
this gray area gonna be more and more and more, right? And then
Yes.
and I believe 5% black, 5% white, and
Right.
90% gray
Room for
area.
error.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
also is a is a different colors. There's a difference. Everybody is
Absolutely.
different. If we can believe this, and then first of all, we are not on pressure. We don't want to put the pressure on other people's.
It is easier said than done. I have to be very honest about this
Mm-hmm.
because let's say I just mentioned earlier, this is deep rooted in you from
Mm-hmm.
childhood.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons you become perfectionist is because you're afraid of failure.
Right.
You do not want to fail because failure is going to kill you somehow emotionally. You feel like, oh my God, I failed. I didn't reach my potential. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I'm not perfect. Fear of failure oftentimes stops these people from doing many, many, many tasks. They
Mm-hmm.
may focus on one or two tasks. You
Mm-hmm.
may find someone to be extremely good at going to school and studying and getting wonderful grades, being on top of their class, graduating from Harvard University, but they may suck in a personal relationship. They may have a horrible relationship with their girlfriend because they don't
Mm-hmm.
even know what intimacy means. They have never put
Yeah.
themselves in that vulnerable situation that they have to feel something, right? So they
Right.
distance themselves from something that could end up in a failure. They know a relationship could end up in a failure.
Mm-hmm.
This is the biggest problem with people that are perfectionists. They may pick up one or two tasks and
Mm-hmm.
leave the rest alone. So sometimes a lot of the things that they have to do in their life becomes incomplete or they never do it. Fear of failure keeps them from doing it. And
Mm-hmm.
if they step into something, they go all the way to the end of perfectionism to make sure, even with perfectionism, that, as you know, there is never a 100% perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're constantly, even at their perfect level, they're still constantly under stress. And that's one of the reasons we have to recognize it, take a step back, and realize there is always a margin of error, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
some of these studies that you see right now on COVID-19. There are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of studies out there. Some studies say 80,000 people are going to die in the United States. Other studies say 130,000. But there is always a margin of error. I remember I was doing a study for my university, which was about single parenting and child abuse.
Mm-hmm.
I studied about 400 people. There was a huge margin of error, and I tried to make corrections and adjustments, and it took me 2 years. Even after 2 years, there was still a margin of error, and I
Wow.
accepted it, and they accepted it. We have to believe there is no such a thing as perfect. Even
Mm-hmm.
the perfect, somebody else could still do a better job, and we could even do a better job if we push ourselves even a little bit more, right? We
Right.
know perfect. Kobe Bryant was perfect. We know Magic Johnson was perfect. We know a lot of other people. You know, Michael Jordan was perfect. But do we know for a fact nobody else is going to come to do better than them? Of course, there is going to be somebody within the next 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 200 years. I don't know, right? So we know nobody's perfect. Once we realize that, then we can just take a step back and look at ourselves and see what are we doing this for anyway? What is the point of being so
Perfect.
perfect? Isn't it at the end of the day supposed to be about my happiness and happiness of other people that are around me? Or
Mm-hmm.
is it about me showing my
Myself to other
performance?
people, or just
Yeah,
show
should
off
do I have
or
to prove
poise.
myself to myself, or do I have to prove myself to other people?
Mm-hmm.
It is not about you're not a Rolex watch. You don't have to be perfect, right? You could just be a watch and be as great and as wonderful as you are. And
Mm-hmm.
that's it. I never sit down and compare myself to other people, but the truth is, sometimes I do. I have that level of perfectionism sometimes in myself, I admit. But at least I'm aware of it. And I don't do
Mm-hmm.
it in every category.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I may be doing some research for the state of California, working on a project or something. Yes, I may be up at 5 a.m., stress about it, do something about it, but it's not every single day, not every single minute of my life. It shouldn't consume you. It
Mm-hmm.
should be a part of things that you do and then you put it aside. Period. Just like watching a movie. You pay attention to the movie, you finish the movie, it's over, you go do something else.
I really appreciate. Thank you so much. It was
Of course.
completely perfect. Perfect.
I, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a
I
wonderful
don't know about
evening.
perfect, but it was okay, I guess.
It was no, no, it was great. Thank you so much. I appreciate.
Thank you so
See you
much.
next time. See you next time. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a wonderful evening. Thank
You
you.
too.
Bye
You
bye.
too. You too. Okay. So we heard a very profound and very deep, uh, explanation. He gave us a very good statement about all things, and it was great. It was great. So stay tuned. After the music, we're gonna come back and continue this program. Thank you.